everybody. We are continuing with our book Message from a Teen in the Spiritual World by The Big Journey by the Spirit Neio, Lucio. Now this book we know now is about a 14-year-old boy who discarnated and wanted to send his brother Lucio a letter to tell him about his experience, about his illness and his death, and also about some his observations in the spiritual world. So I want to read the last paragraph of last week's chapter, because it is actually where this week's chapter is just going on to this week's chapter. So we know that Carlos waked up in the it's like a hospital, in a room, and he told us about the comfort of the room. And then he says here, only then did I notice that a long time had passed and I hadn't said anything. Was my throat in any kind of shape to help me? I gave it a try and yelled, "Mom, Mom!" Right away a mournful voice resounded within me. I realized that I hadn't heard it with my ears. It seemed to come from my own soul, tearing it apart. It was Mom's voice, all right, crying out in anguish. "Carlos, Carlos, my son, come back, come back. Don't leave me, don't leave me." Before I could think any more about my new situation, a nearby door opened and Aunt Eunice walked in. She came up to me, smiled, and sat down beside me. She told me exactly what had happened. "Don't be alarmed, little Carlos. Now you are with us." And now we will continue with this week's chapter, Care and Comfort. What did she mean by that? Aunt Eunice was still beside me, alive and cheerful. There could be no more doubt about it. I was neither hallucinating nor dreaming. I was wide awake. Several disturbing questions arose in my mind. However, I knew that Aunt Eunice had died a long time ago, but me, didn't everything seem normal? I touched my body. I looked at the walls and furniture. Could dying really be this? All I had to do was to think such thoughts, for Aunt Eunice to smile kindly at me and say, "Yes, Carlos, you're here with us now, we who have already passed through the darkness of the grave." Frankly, I felt chills of fear. But Aunt Eunice wasn't troubled at all and remarked, "Silly boy, why are you so scared? You don't have to be." Such a calm attitude filled me with trust. However, all the wailing really upset me. Why was my mum crying like that when there wasn't any reason for it? A bad feeling took hold of me. All the pain that I had felt a while ago returned to my body. I began to cry convulsively. Aunt Eunice, however, understood all about it, and indicating that she knew how I felt inside, she patted my head and said, "Don't be alarmed, child. That really is your mum crying, because she hasn't yet understood life. You are still connected to her by strong but extremely unhealthy ties of love. Compose yourself and think about something else." I wanted to take her loving advice but couldn't. Mum's crying seemed to come from far away, and my desire to see her again was too strong for me to feel free on such short notice. Oh, but it was awful. Mum's crying became louder within me. The more I yielded to the desire to remember everything, and as a result, all my aches and pains began reappearing one by one. The sore throat, the stuffy chest, the hard breathing. It felt as if my long and pain-filled agony had begun once more. Aunt Eunice urged me to be strong and think of God's goodness in order to overcome the heavy feeling of the moment, but it was no use. After washing my face with some cool water from a nearby basin, she added lovingly, "Don't be afraid. We have devoted doctors here too, and I have already sent for one to help us out." Troubled and downhearted, I waited for help to arrive. This is a very educational chapter, and in the last few weeks, in many books that we have done, like that what Vanessa has done and what Sunshine has done in Heaven and Hell, and Memoirs of a Suicide, you will see that the mentors are reminding us to practice letting go. If we look at what Carlos experienced, what he is telling us about his experience, we will understand that our thoughts have an impact on the souls. So if we look at it in this way, and we know about this in Thorn and Life, but the way Carlos is describing this, and we must understand this, and this is what Aunt Eunice told him, is that that really is your mum crying because she hasn't yet understood life. You are still connected to her by strong, and this is what she's saying, but extremely unhealthy ties of love. And this is the practice of letting go. This is what the mentors are asking us to do. Where am I? Today I heard this song, and I think sometimes that small things happen to prepare us for bigger things. I heard a song about a man singing about his father passing, and the song made me remember my father is quite ill. So and because we are talking a lot about letting go, I visualize myself with my dad and having this feeling of thankfulness, of gratitude, all these memories together and all these great things. And I think that we should practice visualizing when we, I don't say think about death every day, yes, but this feeling of understanding that what death is. And this is how we as spiritists are so blessed. We are truly blessed to be able to educate ourselves through this kind spirits who share their experiences with us, to help us educate ourselves and to practice, and that is where it comes in, to practice letting go, to practice having good and loving thoughts. And Aunt Eunice is telling us here that she says that it's really mongering, but she says here, you are still connected. No, it's not the one I want to say. She says here, she doesn't understand life. If we truly understand the spirit world and our true calling in this life, this that we are here in a school of to regeneration, to learn and to not only learn but to help as well. to share all our experiences, to learn how to love one another. And if we truly understand what it's all about and practice it on a daily basis, seeing ourselves letting each other go and to trust in God, I think that is the biggest thing, is to actually trust. But you can see in Carlos' experience that his family is not educated in death. His whole experience about death, what he was told about death, how he thought about death, how his mother is acting on his death, is not experienced. And this is why it's important for us to not only educate ourselves, but to help each other to understand what it's about, and how we can visualize ourselves in a situation for, all of us are going to die. That is one thing. And we are going to have to, let go of family members. But the practice in that, in the way that we think, the way that we trust, the way that we know, especially, that we are told by the Great Spirits that some come from just a small while, like children that just come for a small lesson, and then others, the passing is what their life's lesson is supposed to be like. And the thing is to learn to trust in God. And I think if we can do that, the lesson in all of this, but to also understand that when we think about discarnates, anyone that we love, and especially now that we do the book with Vanessa, Memoirs of a Suicide, it's very important to understand that the spirit world pick up on our thoughts. And this is how we can either, like Carlos' mother, who is actually making him feel anguished, rather let us concentrate on the good and to pray, to be in a prayerful way. When we are in that maybe agony of losing, of we think losing, but on someone's death, let's practice going into a prayer state of mind. Ask for help for ourselves and also for the spirits. And this is what we can do by being together as well. We don't understand the importance to, especially what Cardiac Radio is doing for all of us around the world. And tonight the mentors told us that we are so blessed. If we think about abundance, if you see these books behind me that was sent and donated by so many people, this is abundance. In the spirit world, they will see this as being greatly abundant, because the knowledge and the education that is at our fingertips through so many people and with so much love is beyond our imagination. And it's not just about the education, but it is also about practicing what we need to change in ourselves. Because the consequences are not only on ourselves, but also on those that are around us. And we know that we are interconnected souls. So every thought and every feeling are interconnecting with everybody around us. Even discarnates and carnates, your own family. So this is why it's important to talk about it in your family. To talk about it in your home constantly. To be part of all this. I think there's so many things to, so many books that there's never a lack of opportunity to educate ourselves, or to, even if you are in some kind of trial and you need answers, the answers always come. So, and even if it's through a book, one of the Spirit's books. So we can educate ourselves, and this is our abundance beyond what we can imagine. So let's be in a place where we can visualize ourselves there. Do the practice of visualization, to think about that it's free. Carlos explained it as freeing of the soul when they discarnate and when the soul leaves the body. So, and if we can educate and remind ourselves of this, we would know that in the end, it's freeing for the spirit when they discarnate. And let's be thankful for the time that we have together on earth, but also to pray for them to be free, and don't hold them back. Don't go in anguish. When you feel in that state, let's turn to pray and trust in God to help us through a state of this. Next week we are going to continue with more family. So we will then see what Carlos will tell us about that. But this is a wonderful book, and it's very educational to talk to children, to tell them about this, especially to practice thought and feelings, which is very important not only for us, but to help our kids with this. It's very important because we are interconnected and we are co-responsible for every soul that is in our direct vicinity. So let's do and practice this. May everybody have a great afternoon. I think it is night in South Africa. God bless everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.